The little girl's voice pierced the cold, sterile hallway like a fragile spark in a storm. "Those men won't let my mommy in the hospital." Her tiny fists banged against the glass doors as tears carved clean rivers down her cheeks. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting a harsh glow on the sterile tiles, but even their cold brilliance couldn't drown out the raw fear in her eyes. Her mother, lying on a gurney inside, was struggling to breathe, trapped in a system that seemed heartless and indifferent. People passed by, glancing at the girl with mild curiosity, some with discomfort, but no one stopped. And the little girl, no more than 7, felt the weight of helplessness pressing down on her chest. It was in that moment, as she screamed for someone, anyone, to help, that the world seemed impossibly large, and she, impossibly small. If you believe in the power of kindness and second chances, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Ripple of Kindness. Every small action matters, and stories like this prove it. She had arrived at the hospital hours earlier, her mother's hand clutched tightly in her own, both of them carrying the remnants of hope and fear like fragile paper boats braving a stormy sea. But as soon as they reached the entrance, a group of men had blocked the way. They didn't speak much, their faces harsh and unyielding. The little girl tried to explain that her mother needed urgent care, but the men were immovable, their authority absolute. The world beyond the glass doors felt unreachable, the machines and doctors that could save her mother's life suddenly distant and inaccessible. She looked around, desperate, scanning the street for a miracle that didn't seem to exist. That miracle arrived in the form of rumbling engines and leather jackets. The sudden roar of motorcycles echoed through the street, turning heads as the unmistakable emblem of the Hells Angels appeared around the corner. The little girl froze, her eyes widening, unsure whether to be afraid or hopeful. The bikers dismounted, their presence intimidating yet strangely reassuring. These were men who lived on the edge, whose reputations whispered danger, but their eyes, sharp and watchful, softened when they saw her. Without a word, they approached the glass doors, and the little girl felt a strange pulse of hope. For the first time in hours, she believed someone could stand up for her mother. The leader of the group, a tall man with a weathered face and a softened gaze, stepped forward. He didn't push or threaten, he simply spoke to the men blocking the entrance, his voice carrying the weight of someone who had faced battles far greater than this. Minutes felt like hours as the tension thickened. The little girl's heart pounded against her ribs, her mother's shallow breaths echoing in her ears. And then, as if by some quiet miracle, the doors swung open. The bikers moved aside, letting her mother through. Relief and disbelief flooded the little girl, tears spilling over in a mixture of gratitude and exhaustion. Her mother was rushed inside immediately. Nurses and doctors surrounded her, administering oxygen, checking monitors, and speaking in urgent, clipped tones. The little girl stayed by her side, holding her hand and whispering promises of strength, even as fear gnawed at her. The bikers lingered outside, watching with quiet patience, as if their presence alone had created a shield of protection around this small family. They didn't linger for applause or recognition, their reward was simply the knowledge that they had made a difference in a moment that truly mattered. As the hours passed, the little girl waited in the hospital lobby, fatigue pressing down on her small frame. She thought about how fragile life could be, how quickly fear could consume someone, and how kindness, even from the most unlikely sources, could arrive when hope seemed lost. The Hells Angels' intervention had shifted everything, what felt like an impossible barrier had been torn down by human courage and empathy. The doctors eventually came out with news that was cautiously optimistic. Her mother's condition was stabilizing, and while the road ahead would be challenging, she was going to live. The little girl's sobs turned into quiet laughter, a fragile but genuine release of months of tension and fear. The bikers watched from a distance, nodding to one another before revving their engines and disappearing into the night. The street returned to its ordinary rhythm, but for the girl and her mother, the world had changed forever. They had seen kindness where it was least expected, and they had learned that courage sometimes wore leather and rode motorcycles. The little girl's mother, once able to speak, held her daughter close and whispered a shaky but heartfelt thanks. In that embrace, the girl felt the full weight of their ordeal, the terror and relief and overwhelming love that had carried them through. She understood, even at 7, that the world could be cruel, but it could also shine with unexpected light. And she vowed, silently, that one day she would carry that light forward for someone else, just as it had been carried to her. Life slowly returned to normal, though it was never quite the same. Every time the little girl passed by the street where the bikers had appeared, she remembered the roar of engines, the glint of leather, and the faces of men who had chosen kindness over indifference. And as she grew older, that memory became a guiding star, reminding her that courage could take many forms and that hope often arrived when it was needed most. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, and share this video. Your engagement helps spread the message that kindness, courage, and compassion are powerful forces, capable of transforming lives in ways we might never anticipate. Before we close, leave a comment sharing the kindest thing someone has ever done for you, because your story could be someone else's lifeline.